Heyo.
What's up, everybody?
Right, and of course, because he just can't stay away.
I was about to start freestyling.
He's John.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Nice little beats.
I think first and foremost, something we need to address, because Shep and I were talking about this before the show, and it was a real crisis moment for us.
Yeah.
What name do you prefer to go by, man? We keep tagging you as Jon McEwen and everything, and you've never said shit to me. And now I'm listening to this other podcast, and I see the John Wolf everywhere.
The real
John Wolf.
It's funny. The origins of that name is like kind of fuzzy. I really don't remember where it came from. I can't even really tell you. But I guess since I'm going with that and have been for like some time, maybe about a year and a half, I should probably stick with that. Of course, Jon McEwen is my actual name, but I mean,
okay. So we're not wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we were both like, yo, has he just been being nice? Letting us call him whatever the fuck we want.
You call me Nightmare. I think you introduced me as Nightmare a couple times. I mean, it's all interchangeable. I don't know if that's the word, but I mean, either way.
With that, I do the same.
Yeah. I use Nightmare a lot just because I know like 15 Johns. So like, everybody had to get a fucking nickname.
Yeah, it's cool. Really, I mean, I guess we can go with John Wolf from now on, but Jon McEwen will do. I'll let this one slide.
So nobody's confused in the future. They just happen to look alike. It's the same person.
It is.
So this is your fourth time on the show.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
You're tied neck and neck with our other guest, Christine Mariello. And today, a hot topic. We're talking religion and mental health, the effects that religion can have on one's mental health. So, where you boys want to start?
Well, first and foremost, I think I should say I'll probably be a little bit more serious this time. Usually I come on in the first, I think the first one we did, I asked if you could take your shirt off or something. I think there may have been somebody else on there too who didn't know me or something, and so it could be very off-putting. But like this subject is actually, I don't know how. I mean, I talked about it a couple of times. Definitely my podcast, on social media and stuff like that. But like the stuff we'll get into in the detail, I'll put in there. I don't think we've ever actually talked about face to face, and it's heavy. So I'll probably not be acting a fool this time.
Yeah. Well, you were just on that Brunch with Pals podcast.
Yeah.
And you were talking about Satanism and stuff like that. And I was listening to it, and I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, I got to hear this because this is a part of John's life that he's never got into with me. Like you always say it in passing. You're always like talking about like, oh, I grew up in a cult, this, that, the other. And I'm just like, what are the fucking details there? Like, I've never actually heard the story. So I was very intrigued to listen to that podcast.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm glad you listened, man. I appreciate it. Besides the stuff I do with you, that was the only other collaboration on a podcast that I've done yet. So it was cool. It was definitely cool to be on there, especially because I know her. I used to work with her, and I did. I thought that maybe I said a little bit more to you, but because I'll get in front of you and I will talk you to death. That is something I can kill somebody with. Right. But What do you want to know? I guess.
I mean, for those people who did not listen to that podcast, I mean, explain that. When you say you grew up in a cult.
So I think that's one. It's like a kind of like a catchphrase. So like, even though it is a cult, in the way that we understand when I say the word, cult is just short for culture. So the Amish people, they're kind of like a cult. They have a different culture, different lifestyle. It's not always a negative connotation per se. And I think that maybe some people who grew up in Amish town, they may feel differently, but from my limited understanding of them, that's the way I would explain it. But the Jehovah's Witnesses, they really parade themselves to be one way, but it's a lot of stuff. And of course, people aren't perfect. And of course, like, people are gonna make mistakes, but it's like, it's almost, it's manipulative and evil, misleading and life ruining in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of trauma. And that's why I was glad that you reached out to me, not only because y'all my boys, but the fact that I personally have experienced trauma, personally, even to this day, deal with certain things. And I'd love to talk. There's so many areas. You got to give me like a specific, where you want to let me off the leash at?
I don't know. I'd say just we'll roll with the mental health thing first and foremost. Okay. How it affects your mental health.
Okay. Now this part is really interesting because the Jehovah's Witnesses and really cults in general, I guess this is where the Amish people would differ, because you could be Amish. Well, actually, maybe not, because you can't be who you are and think the way you do. You can't be an individual. And that's really important to understand. There is no freedom of thought. There is no, it's really not only mind control, but mind policing in such an ingenious way. And I'll just kind of tell you, because a lot of us grew up in it. So I grew up in it. I was born into it. My grandmother on my mom's side got into it somehow. And of course, I heard, when your mom says something, you gotta do it. The dad is powerless against your mother. So, all the kids have to go with her. And because she brought them up in the Jehovah's Witnesses, they look at the world as this way. So my cousins, myself, and my brothers had to go to the Kingdom Hall, and we too grew up believing that this is that. Now, the difference is that if you grow up in the church, you go to church on Sundays sometimes, and it's kind of almost like this thing that's passive. It's like, yeah, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, and you eat the communion, and you try to fuck with the pastor's daughter in the church. You try to do all this other stuff that you're not supposed to be doing, but it isn't necessarily condemned. You could be a person. You can have warriors for Christ. You have taekwondo for Christ or whatever. You can live your life as long as you accept Jesus in your heart, and you can still go out, be a person, experience the world, make mistakes. Even though religion itself is detrimental, and the word religion means to bind, to restrain, when you're in the modern day church, it's not like the witnesses. So everybody acts like they're perfect. Everybody, there's no air of authenticity. So your friendship, everything is everything in life is, I'm trying to think of the word, it's not for nothing. And you learn that really quickly. For instance, you're not allowed to be friends with people that are worldly. So you guys don't go to the Kingdom Hall. I wouldn't be allowed to be friends with you, because you may have some sort of worldly influence on me, and Satan has control of the world. So there's one thing. You're kind of restricted to who you can and cannot associate with. There's a certain conversation that is allowed to be had. And let's say I'm curious about Islam, witchcraft, anything, Judaism. You can learn about it, but you have to learn it through the Jehovah's Witnesses. So there's a website called jw.org, and that is where you get the information. So we'll say, yeah, well, they believe in this, but the Bible says this. So it always leads you back to it. You're also not encouraged to have a career. You could do work, you got to pay bills, you got to take care of your kids, whatever. But it takes away from kingdom work, long hours, going to college, takes away from, going and knocking on doors, getting ready for the meetings and all that. You also there's 3 meetings throughout the week. I don't know about now. I haven't been to the Kingdom Hall in years, but there's 3 meetings. So your time is pretty much occupied. You either got to work or go to school. Then after that, you got to prepare for the meeting. So Sunday, you have a 2-hour meeting as soon as you wake up. 9 o'clock usually. It might be earlier than that, depending on what time of the year it is. So Sunday, you get the good word. Monday, from growing up the way I did it, Monday we had the Bible study. So you go to work, go to school, come home, get ready. You have to go through the watchtower, study it, get ready to answer questions during the meeting when they ask. Then you go, then you come home, and you have a little bit of time before you got to go to bed. Wednesday, you got another 2-hour meeting, and the next one is Sunday. So most of your week, not most of it, but some of your week, a lot of your week is taken up doing this type of shit. And we're not even talking about witnessing. So we go knock on the doors and say, hey, well, you believe in Jesus Christ and blah, blah. That's usually on Saturdays. So when you're really dedicated to the kingdom, it's a lifestyle. And if you have any questions, it's taboo. So you're not allowed to think for yourself. Also, it gets really confusing and I know I'm throwing a lot at you. Stop me whenever so I can be more specific. But before I get to what I was about to get to, that I listed out like the meetings. Twice a year you have conventions. So they're all day conventions about we're on the precipice of the end. This is it. You know, there was a terrorist attack and people are getting killed and there's a war going on and there's war and the Bible says there's wars and rumors of wars and this and that. And these are signs for the end. And so you're scared to death as a fucking kid. And it's like, Jesus Christ, everything I'm doing is wrong. I'm trying to live by the Bible. If you have any questions, they'll even kind of gaslight you and say, so you don't think that God did this or that? Well, you know, I believe. I'll give you an example. The very first question that I asked that got me thinking, I was like, but, you know, Noah's Ark only had 2 animals. There's like lions and shit on there. Who do them niggas eat? Like, you can't have a big ass. Do you know how big bears are? They're fucking huge. So you can't just give him a Twinkie and think that he's just gonna be cool. So, you know, what are they eating? And that was the first thing, you know, just being a kid. And I remember when I had my first biology 101 course, I learned about something called a bottleneck. So 10,000 years ago, a lot of cheetahs died, right? I don't know what happened. It could be natural disasters, whatever. But they wanted to see how closely related they are. And what they did was they took a skin graft out of one, put on the other, and then kept trying to put skin grafts to see if their bodies would accept it. But they were so genetically close that there was 100% rejection rate. So we know that 10,000 years ago an event happened, which predates our understanding of the existence of the world, because they only believe it's 6,000 years old. And that all these are really close. So like, and then if you talk about like freshwater and saltwater, if you ever had the fish, even if you have a freshwater fish you put in freshwater, if the water is too cold or too hot, the fish will go into shock and die. So you have to sit it in there while it's in the bag so it can acclimate to its environment. But at one point, the world just got flooded and everything died. And we're supposed to believe this. But if you ask the question, you don't love God. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like you don't believe. Maybe you need to talk to the elder. God forbid you get sexually assaulted, because one thing that people don't talk about is when sexual assault happens, those elders, the people who run the congregations, they will sit you down and they will decide if the police get called. And so it's like so many directions I can go in. It's really, I'm sorry, I'm ranting, but it's really difficult for me. Mental health, all this is bad for your mental health. All of it, from the mind control to the lack of individuality, to the confusion about truth, about our bodies, about how we're supposed to express ourselves sexually, from masturbation to casual sex, to the idea of marriage, to the idea of association with other people. And then the worst one is shunning. So if we all, let's say we're all friends, but let's say we're all witnesses and I got questions and you guys are like, man, John, I don't know if your head's on right. Like, what do you mean you're questioning God's existence? You'll go and fucking tell the elder, which happens all the time because you got little fucking snitches everywhere, nobody to confide in. And they'll go and tell the elder. And next thing you know, your mom is there. You don't believe in God anymore. And if you're old enough, they'll kick you out your fucking house. They'll kick you out the house. The person you work for might be a witness. Your friends are witnesses. And now you have nobody. And you go to the meetings and nobody will talk to you. And you're hungry and you have nowhere to go. It's supposed to be a loving punishment, but what it really is gaslighting, it's manipulation, and it's to make you turn around and lie, and just you want some comfort. So even if you're still questioning, you need somewhere to sleep. You got to eat, but it's supposed to be a loving punishment. And these are just really quick. That was a quick version. Even though it's been 15 minutes, it's a quick version of just a lot of different things. I could take it in any direction. And for myself, I personally haven't had, well, I'm dealing with some shunning now, but it's like, just imagine like, you know, people that you grew up with who never really accepted you because you were different. You know what I mean? I haven't always been the easiest person, I guess. You know, I had a lot of energy. I had some issues just with this shit going on in life. My grandmother actually sent me to counseling because she thought I was possessed. You know, she thought I was possessed. And I'm like, what did I do to make me think that there was a demon inside of me? Right. And it was just a total lack of guidance. And I haven't talked to her in years, you know. They don't reach out to me. And really because I speak out against it now because of how harmful it is. So,
yeah. I mean, a lot of my personal experience has been similar in some ways. Like I remember the first time I questioned it. because
Yeah.
I didn't really come from a super religious family. Like my immediate family, like my mom and dad, like they didn't take me to church. It was my great aunt that would take me, like her and my grandma. I go to church with them on Sundays, uh,
Mhm.
and I just remember at a certain point, I was old enough to start thinking about it, and I'm just like, we're kind of past the Bible story phase and stuff. I
Yeah.
started thinking about it, and I'm like, man, this idea of like this God who creates us, in our like only to what be pissed off at us all the time, like and constantly be wanting to punish us and just telling us we're large pieces of shit. Something about that did not set well with me. I'm like, I feel like you're teaching two different things at the same time, and so I
Mhm.
started questioning it then. Um, and then just as my life has gone on, I've had so many people who consider themselves to be, deeply religious Christians, and I talk a lot of shit about Christians, but it's one of those things where like I know the difference between what I'm talking about when I'm generalizing Christians, and like I
Mhm.
got a lot of friends who like I can have a real talk with them about their faith because that's exactly what it is. Like they believe in the spirituality of it, not the religion of it.
Right.
You have those other people, these diehard Christians who do the opposite of everything that they're preaching about. Who are constantly. And so growing up in Tennessee, especially, that's like the fucking Bible Belt over there.
Yeah.
There are so many people in my life when I was living there that had personally dealt with just toxic, toxic, toxic environments at their church. Um, and the way that they get treated while they're going through hard times, they're dealing with mental health issues and stuff. And the way the church is treating them because of these things only made it worse. Eventually they would kind of get ran out of their church by a bunch of people who are very, high and mighty, act like they're better than you,
Mhm.
basically do everything that the Bible's telling you not to do. It's like, don't, thou shalt not judge, but people can't get enough of it. They want to judge everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went to a service in Tennessee when I was living there last. Just went with a friend of mine, and at first I was like, okay, cool. It was like one of those modern churches or whatever. Dude's up there. He's telling this story about how he used to be an addict or whatever,
Mhm.
a drug addict, and he's telling this story, and he got me hooked. I'm like, listen, I'm like, damn, this is so interesting. That life that he lived through to get to this point now. And then he started talking about the gay community. He's like, I've been thinking on this a lot lately, whether it's right or it's wrong. Like, I got a lot of friends personally who are homosexuals. I've done a lot of thinking and I've decided that it is wrong. And he starts going on about why it's wrong and why it's just, and I was just like, whoa, this took a turn. This took a
Yeah.
turn. And I'm like, I do not want to be here right now. But
Yeah.
this same preacher had done a lot of just psychological damage to some of my friends. And I had one friend that went to this church who, speaking on the whole like not really thinking for yourself thing, she'd be like she was super into like 50 Shades of Grey when it came out.
Let's
And,
talk about it.
and so she was like reading the book, she was excited for the movie to come out or whatever. And the preacher addressed the movie coming out in his sermon. It was like, now I know that this movie's coming out, and like a few of you have probably read the books and are thinking about going to see this, but I encourage you not to do so, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so she didn't. Like this thing that she was very excited for, everything, like she just cut it off because the preacher said, hey, don't do that. Same with like she was big into American Horror Story, and we talk about it all the time. And then she just quit watching one season because dude's like, no, it's all demonic and shit. And it's like you couldn't have gotten that from like the first 3 seasons,
Yeah.
you
Are you
know?
on TikTok?
Huh?
Are you on TikTok?
No.
I've got to find this guy, and I got your number. I'll send it to you. There's a guy. Oh my God! You want to talk about cringe? He's like one of these youth pastors, and he's like a guy with he has really pretty eyes, but like he's like this guy. It's always some guy with like he's dressed kind of like a surfer, and he has a weird lisp, and his teeth look funny. It's always that guy who's like some youth pastor, and he's like really close to it. And he's like, "You haven't chose God, but God loved you," and just all this other weird shit. I'm like, these are people. One thing I'm starting to realize about the larger community is these are sad, lonely, miserable people who have a lot of questions in themselves, who are struggling and battling with a lot of things that they were taught. Uh, Most of the time is homosexuality, which is there's nothing wrong with that, as we all know. Um, and they become so extreme, it becomes their identity because there's nothing else interesting about them. with the witnesses, they're just a bunch of fucking weirdos. Even though there's a lot of them that are good people. I've met some good people, so I can't just say they're a bunch of fucking weirdos. But more often than not, they're like the degenerates, and not degenerates. I'm saying they're more like, in high school, like, so we all at the lunch table making beats, rapping, talking about movies and shit, and you look over and it's a weird guy running, doing the run through the hallway and shit. Yeah. It's like the whole congregation is them niggas. They're all weirdos. So, in that youth, when you said that, it reminded me of the youth pastor. So I'm sorry, I just had to say that before I forgot.
I also had somebody, the seizures that I have and stuff. When those first started, it was while I was living in Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
I had one day, and I was like out back. I was in the backyard when it was going down, and dude comes home. He comes out there. I think he's gonna like help me out and stuff, and he starts praying over me and shit. And they start telling me at one point. One day he had a conversation with me about how I was not possessed by a demon, but I was oppressed by a demon. But I was, and he broke down the difference for me and everything. And pretty much he's like you're oppressed by a demon. Like there's this energy that follows you and stuff. And what I found more interesting is that in the case that he was right, I think he was wrong about one thing. I don't think he was oppressing me, because that shit only happened when I was around them, and when I left it was over. And it seemed like this kind of shit happened to them well before I met them and well after I fucking left them. Like that shit's still happening to them. So it's like, if you are correct about this, I don't think it's mine. I think it might be somebody else's. I was along for the ride, and I was the outsider, coming in from the Midwest, where I'm not as religious as all these people. I think a little differently. I approach situations differently. Like everybody was very passive aggressive. I'd be like, no, fuck that. We're getting to the bottom of this, because I'm not gonna fucking go around being all shitty with each other, but not discussing the issue. Like that's just bullshit. So I was always cast as the villain most of the time in a situation, because I was willing to speak my mind. I did things differently,
Yeah.
I smoked, things that they're like, oh, I can't believe. By the time I left, all of them were smoking weed. All of a sudden it was okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, I had to be condemned for it for like fucking months before y'all started coming around,
Well, think about, and this is a testament to both of you. I mean, just in life, right? Think about how hard it is just to be who we are. Like, there's a lot of people that don't agree with the fact that some people are scared. A lot of people are scared. I'll give you, okay, fine. So before I started boxing, I didn't have this mouth. I didn't just say whatever I wanted. I wasn't so outgoing. I had it in me, but I was afraid of a lot of things. So once I learned I could fight, I'm like, okay, well, if we get in an argument, not me and you, but if I get in an argument with somebody, I could just hit the nigga in the mouth if he like gets in my, if he gets in my face, like, and if I hit him and he does something, I know how to move, I know how to fight. So 10 years go by and I'm like, damn, I'm not only can I fight now, I can whoop a lot of motherfuckers out here. So like, then I stopped being afraid of just being who I am, believing in what I got more strong in what I believed in, even though my beliefs are flexible because things change. At the fucking pandemic, I believed in all that shit at first. Now I'm just like, man, fuck that. So I'm able to have a strong opinion about some shit, and it can change with evidence. But just think about being that way, the way you are to get on stage, Shep, to pitch your ideas to people who are afraid to put their foot in front of them. It's very difficult being who we are and doing what we do. So imagine a bunch of people who are afraid of the truth, who are afraid of rejection. They'll use that shit to their benefit. Well, I don't think this is right, and you know what? The spirit is telling me this, that, and that, and it gives them a sort of narcissistic supply. And these end up being safe havens, especially Kingdom Hall, for psychopaths, and sociopaths, and people with larger issues. And so when you have people that are afraid, you tell, and you're strong enough to manipulate them, you get that sense of power, it's a sense of place, because everybody wants community, right? Everybody goes to religion for intellect. Well, not religion, but it's supposed to be like intellectual community and something else. I forget why people go to a religious setting anyway. It's definitely not intellectual, because if you even do a little bit of research, you start to find out that the Bible is just a compilation of older myths. So like the Proverbs is word for word taken from the coffin text. I mean, word for word. It's like there's no well, maybe it's actually literally plagiarized. So, I mean, like, if we know that, then what about everything else? And what about this? And what about, so think about what we do and what it takes to be us. And then people that are famous and people who do other great things. Imagine being who we are and then look at everybody else and being like, man, you guys are actually idiots because you're allowing yourself to be manipulated because you are unsure of who you are and what you want in life. And that's another issue with religion, especially the witnesses. I can't really speak about church too much, but the witnesses for sure deal with your insecurities and your fear and your, man, dude, do you know how many times I woke up afraid, or how many times, like, the way you look at the world is so fucked up because you think the world, literally any second the world can end, and that I'm going to be it's going to be like the Holocaust, because that's what they teach us. Is that it's going to be like the Great Tribulation. Shit's going to be crazy, and you might die during the Great Tribulation. I'm like, shit, I'm 7. What do you mean I might die? Like, Mom, I can't fathom death. Oh, now I can't fathom death. And you're telling me that Satan, wait a second. So Satan gets to go do all this shit, but I got to die during the Great Tribulation? Like, what the fuck? And then even after that, after the Great Tribulation, after paradise comes and the world is cleansed of evil, Satan gets let out after 1,000 years and gets to try to trick us again. Like, what the fuck kind of game is this shit? So you just grow up in that mindset, like the world can end any minute. So fear. And then you're just being controlled. You can't talk to anybody about how you actually feel because you're not going to get a real answer. And then people will go tell on you. And if you know me, imagine me being just kind of like this, but a little kid, and just trying to figure out what's going on, throwing your parents splitting up, throwing, you moving to a bad neighborhood in Chicago, trying to maneuver that, and then throw in just growing up and shit and all the shit that you like and that people don't like in society. And it's like, okay, well, nobody likes me. I'm a fucking weirdo, and I'm shamed for liking Harry Potter because it's a good escape for me. Or God forbid I watch Lord of the fucking Rings. But no, you can't watch that because it's ghosts and demons and orcs, and Jehovah don't like that. And it's like, well, damn, I can't even have an outlet. I got to go to the Kingdom Hall. Like, this shit is lame. So, if anybody is like curious about like other people's stories, you can go on YouTube and look up Truth Be Told. I think it used to be free, but now I think it's like $3 or something to rent. And it's a phenomenal. I mean, especially if you've been in it. Like, when my mom was coming up, you could not go to school. They would be like, no, you're not going to school. And now you can. So imagine being my mom's age, which my mom, she has some level of success in her life now doing what she wants. But imagine the witnesses saying you can't go to school. And then 20 years later, oh, everybody should go to school because the rules change now. And it's like, dude, what about me? What about my life? Then you get out later and it's like, I wasted my whole life. That's why I have all these crazy tattoos, because religion isn't welcome in my household, in my life. I'm a Satanist. Everybody knows it. I don't hurt kids or cats or animals or nothing like that. I just believe in the beast inside of us and being good to other people. And I believe in rational Satanism, but I mainly believe in it because it's a complete contradiction to what the Christian faith believes Satanists to be. I'm not a devil worshiper. I have my own kind of spirituality and all that, and it gets a little,
It's
but
more about nature.
Huh?
Satanism was always more about nature.
Yeah.
And the natural law and just the natural way that the earth really is.
Yeah.
It was never about like, I'm gonna go fucking, you can go death metal with it. Like, I'm gonna go head this goat off, bleed it, whatever. That's cool around October, but no, I mean, I don't know, bro. Like, for me, it was always a question when I was younger about like, how is there one religion that's right?
Mm-hmm.
All these other motherfuckers that think they're right and they're just wrong, but these ones right.
Yeah.
And that's where I start always posing my questions to break away from.
Yeah. Did you have a choice?
Well, say what?
Did you have a choice in like whether you had to go to church or not?
Oh yeah, like we never really did go to church when I grew up. My mom married a dude for a while, and he like forced us to go, but whatever. It was Methodist. It's like, I'm gonna go sleep. I don't give a shit. And, but like, for me, it was just always like, you always felt like the universe had more to it. Like, and growing up, getting told like, oh, there's this big guy with this big old beard and stuff in the sky created everything. You're like, that makes sense. That works. But like when you really stop, I don't know, man. I always based everything off my own life experiences, what I've got to see and how I got to feel in any of the religious fucking like divine moments that a lot of people were like, oh my God, that was God and stuff like that. It was always to me like a lot of it was, well, that could have been us though. That could have been all of our minds right now,
Yeah.
like I'm saying, like in emergency rooms, like I think I've said that on the show where, a girl about to die, her brain swells, so they all pray, and then her brain starts de-swelling right there on the spot. The doctors were, oh, I've never seen this. I don't know how this is happening. And they're all, it was God. God came and touched her, and he saved her, and this and that. And it's like, or there's like 14 of us, and we were all focused so hard on that brain needs to stop swelling that maybe we created that with our own minds.
Exactly. And the world is definitely way stranger. I mean, you want to talk about God? I think God, and like if God was real, that'd be very mild compared to what's actually going on, because I think you're 100. I was going to go that way after you got done. I was going to say, well, maybe it's this, and you hit it right on the head. I think that's what it is. And then prayer is actually the law of attraction. And like, like even the way they teach you to pray as a witness, like you have to live like your prayer has already been answered and all this other stuff. And later on, I was like, wait a second, that's the law of attraction. So there's a lot of things that have been around for a long time. I think a lot of technologies, and people don't realize how powerful they are. And one thing that the witnesses do, and I believe that it's a cult, it's a distraction. Think of today now, all the shit that's going on. Tomorrow, there's going to be a conference. They're going to hold a public conference about the UFO issue. The government. Tomorrow. This has never been done.
Is this what Tom DeLonge's been hyping up?
I don't know. I haven't. Tom DeLonge. Is he the guy from Blink 182?
Yes.
Oh, no, I haven't heard anything from him, but I've been hearing it all over TikTok, and that's how I found out. I was like, wait a second. There's been some stuff like hearings and whatnot, but the government's like, we got to come through with some bullshit to appease people because this issue is becoming greater and greater and greater and greater. And with all the real life things that have gone on, I have only been in it. I was only in it 21 years. And I would say on and off because from an early teenager, I kind of fell in and out of it, but I always came back to it until I was about 21. But imagine somebody who's 50 and spent their whole life in it. Your life has been wasted. You're cucked out. Your wife doesn't want to fuck you. She's probably ugly, because you can only date and marry the people in the Kingdom Hall. And they're all weirdos. So all the hot girls got taken. And now you got Betsy over here who like has a yeast infection. And so like you have all this stuff going on and you're stuck with somebody. My uncle, right? And I'm not trying to throw shade at my uncle, but my uncle married somebody. He found somebody on Facebook, which a lot of people do, whatever. And she lived all the way in California. She had 2 kids prior to him, and they ended up getting married. And I believe he's happy. He has a kid. They have a kid together. So now she has 3 kids. Well, they have 3 kids. And but his options were limited because of like, and I've heard this and that. I don't know if it's true, like issues. I don't know what's going on. I haven't talked to him in years, but just think about how limited you are, and think about how you're not even able render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. So pay your taxes. Don't fight the police. You listen to the law, and you can't divorce your wife unless she cheats on you, tries to harm you, or get you to stop serving God. So those are the only ways that you can divorce. So go ahead and be cucked out by this fucking system. You can't stand up to any oppression. You can't own a fucking gun. You can't protect yourself in that way. God's not coming to save you. He's not. And I've been in a lot of situations where I was like, Jehovah never showed up. So I don't have this outlook because of that. It's a lot of other things, but you can't. A revolution is just a bunch of guys standing around saying, we're not going to stand for this. There's no revolution with them. And the religion became because there's a man named Charles Taze Russell who was a millionaire. His family owned clothing stores. And he walked into some Seventh-day Adventist church and said, you know what? I'm inspired to translate the Bible the way I see fit. That's literally how it came to be. It's not and then in 1914, they said that the world, Jesus is on the throne, and the world is, the end times are coming. This is the end times. And then, or 1918, one of them. And then they said the world was going to end in like the 60s or 70s. Didn't happen. So everybody, a bunch of people left. And were like, oh, well, it was an inaccurate prophecy and all this and that. And then every year since then, the world's going to, I think it was another time they lied and said the world was ended. So they're all frauds. And imagine if you're so busy doing all this fucking stupid bullshit and having such a lack of confidence and all the other mental side effects, you can't stand up and say, you know what? There's supposedly some virus killing everybody and the government didn't make it. And go put a mask on, be and conform. It's to create more people to conform so you can't stand up and you can't go to battle or be men. There's no more traditional men for the most part. We're all becoming we're like Bond. And now you can't even be James Bond because he's toxically masculine. So, which doesn't even make any fucking sense. Toxic masculinity doesn't even exist. It's not even a real thing. It's just a thing to describe all the men that the girls actually want to fuck but can't say it. And so I think that's why the Jehovah's Witnesses, you can't be a man and be a Jehovah's Witness. You can't be a real man and be a Jehovah's Witness or one of these religious cocks that are just so fucking far gone. They can't even think for themselves. I'm sorry.
we did this to you.
You did this to me, Chase and Chef.
Yeah, we knew what we were doing, I
guess. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's crazy. Like, the whole thing with religion, like you're saying, is just that. I've always looked at it as a way to get people separated out, conform away, which I don't necessarily think is terrible. But I don't know, man. I just always looked at it like you're bringing up aliens and stuff. Like, what would happen if aliens pop up, or people? If I'm a Christian, am I going to be like, well, God made them too?
We're gonna find out real soon.
Or what are they gonna? Or are they gonna blast it out and tell us something different? Because I've just always thought, you read any of these, religious texts or any of them, and you just replace God and all that stuff with the universe and shit like that. It's all this starts making a little bit of sense. We're just the universe experiencing itself down here, and so is everything else. And nobody really fucking knows anything.
Well, we talked about it last week with the whole nihilism conversation.
Nihilism?
Yeah, you get the people who are nihilistic in a very negative way, who think, okay, everything doesn't matter, so fuck everything. Everything's fucked, it's the worst, so why are we even doing any of this? And then you get the other people who's more positive about it. They're like, yeah, nothing matters. Fuck it. We got to live this life,
Exactly.
So how I was, whenever the topic of what's the point of life comes up, I feel obviously I could be wrong, but for me, it's the point of life is to live life. You were given it, and it's you're only here for an amount of time, so fucking go live it.
I disagree.
It's here's your life, go fucking live it. However,
I disagree, Chase.
Okay, let's hear it.
I disagree. I believe I agree with everything you said, but I disagree with one small thing.
Sure.
Energy cannot be destroyed; it can only change forms. And the universe has been around for 14.54 billion years.
Yeah.
We're a part of that energy. We've always been here, I believe. I think
with this.
I think we've always been here. I think, maybe it hasn't always been this form. And we really appreciate it. I'm sitting here and it feels good to take that deep breath. It feels good to look at my beautiful woman over there, to talk to my friends online and have this conversation. But this is what I understand in a way that we can rationalize and communicate. I love the fact that before we called, I talked to my daughter. I just had her yesterday. I miss her already. And I get to see her this weekend. These are things that we live in and we call it, or we exist in and call it life. But there's such a larger thing that we're a part of that we can't even see. There's 11 dimensions stacked up, and we don't even know if there's life here, and we just can't see it.
Well, I always said, I always heard, you'll just return to what you had before you existed, and you don't remember nothing. But the way I look at it is I don't remember nothing because I didn't have sight. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I don't have a sight to base the memory off like I do now in my meat body. So how do I not know that I wasn't a cell?
Yeah.
How do I not know that I wasn't a fungi? And I've worked my way up to now, like you're saying, into the third dimension. And this is me experiencing that. And when this is done, I can go to the next one that we can't perceive.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what?
We definitely agree with each other, John. I agree with you.
I don't agree with you. I disagree that you agree with me.
Well, that was our show today. Religion and mental health.
That's a
Oh, that's a wrap?
Censored. No.
Oh, I thought you were saying that's a wrap. Like, Jonathan, shut up. Okay.
Yes. But yeah, no, I mean, I agree with the whole energy, You know, just all of us being a part of something bigger. I mean, that's in between.
What's he saying? I see
What's
Mr. Cash pop.
Okay, Mr. Cash. What if aliens turn out to also be humanoid? Doesn't that prove divine creation? No, that's good.
Oh, that's awesome.
It might, but I also have the theory that aliens are just time travelers and they're humans from the future too. So I mean, like that could prove that as well. But no, like you never know, man. Like because you know we all like to poke fun at ancient aliens and shit because you know they're always saying some crazy shit. But when you do look back on the ancient cultures way back when, like to our knowledge, a lot of them had some knowledge about shit that's like you didn't have the technology to have this knowledge,
right?
By our standards, and I do think that our Earth has seen periods of advanced civilization that has been wiped out and then rebuilt up, and I do think that like this ties in all of our topics because the religions have came, I feel like, from a failed civilization, and they're like, no, we need something put in place. We need that, like you're saying, fear. We need them to fear something bigger out there. Oh, you're gonna go to eternal damnation and you're gonna burn and it's gonna suck and it's gonna, you know, you're gonna get raped by a fucking demon every morning. And and like you said, as a kid, you're like, holy fuck, dude. And I think I've told one of my buddies before recently this about, you know, a musician that had a line in when he's like, you know, every, you know, as a kid, you went to school every day and they tell you, man, if you don't succeed, if you don't do the best, if you don't be the best, you're not going to do anything. You're not going to be anything in life. You need to have the most. You got to go to college. You need to get the best education, this and that. And then you go to a religious setting where they're telling you, hey, the meek are going to inherit the earth. You know, and like you can't be too strong. And, you know, and it's like, man, it's just such a back and forth when you're growing up within that whole culture of the religion. And it's like, yeah, no wonder kids are coming out kind of fucked up and don't know anything.
Yeah, and think about like even what is the joke with the pastor's daughter? She's always the wildest one, or something like that, or she's always a whore, or something like that, because it's so strict. You're not allowed to be a person, and that's even as a father thinking about my daughter. She just turned 7. I mean, she's getting older, and the things that come with getting older are going to happen. And I don't like that. I don't like thinking about. Me and my girl were just talking about that yesterday. There's certain things I don't like to think about, but you know what? It's going to happen, and just imagine like all the people, myself included, because Chase, you knew me like when I first started partying, and it was wild. And man, every day, that's a result of not being able to get some of that stuff out as a teenager. So I did some things as a teenager, but to be my girlfriend's brothers, one of them is 20, one of them just turned 18, and they have an open door policy. You tell mom where you're going, when you're going to be back, and that's pretty much it. She lets you do what you're going to do as long as you're not gonna kill yourself or, you know, stuff like that, stuff that's like far extreme. So when it comes time for them to be 24, 25, they're gonna be more normal because they've had a chance to be a child. But imagine growing up and not being able to be a normal person. I think that's kind of why I'm a little bit more, I don't like saying it, but I'm immature sometimes. Like even just you guys have witnessed my immaturity a lot. Because like it's an inappropriate time. Why would we're doing a podcast. Why are you telling me to take my shirt off? You know what I mean? It's just like sometimes it's a gift because I've worked with children and they can identify, not because I'm being immature, but because I know what it's like to have fun. And I also view life a little bit, I think, childlike, just because I believe in myself and I believe I'm capable of all these things. I have these wild goals, which I'm, you know, slowly coming up to. And I'm very proud of myself for that. But at the same time, that maturity I wish was there earlier because I was involved in a lot of things that I wish I wasn't. And just you can't shelter, you have to expose your children and your family and people to the world because that's the truth. No matter what, we can talk about everything else and people may not believe in my idea of spirituality, which is a different conversation. But, you know, the world is here, and the reality is that we got to get out and go, and we need to know what this is and what that is. And you're just a more well-rounded person when you know the world around you, and not just, you know, you can go travel to Venezuela, but you're going to the Kingdom Hall. Like, no, that's not how you get to learn Venezuela, by being in a fucking shack because Venezuela, South America, is a shithole. You know, it's you got to be out in the city, you got to be out in the world.
It's the truth, though, man.
Yeah.
I've had many conversations like this recently. You know, Phil and I were talking about, you know, growing up in a small town, like there are things that we appreciate about it, that opportunities and stuff that like we wouldn't have had in like a bigger city. Like we're not just going to be running around till the streetlights come on, like not a care in the world that like I don't know, we're in the middle of bumfuck nowhere.
Yeah.
So there's just certain things that like we got to experience that other people didn't. Had we been in like a bigger place or something. But I also had that benefit of like growing up in Tennessee as well. So like I got exposed to more culture, to bigger schools, to people of different races, like just all this shit that's like to come back to that small town when I was in junior high with all of this experience from the past like fucking 10 years or whatever it was. It's like, well, there's this whole other world out there, you guys, like all of these like racist small town people and all this other shit. It's like, they're just people, right? Like there's just like, there's a whole fucking world out there,
Yep.
And especially being somebody who's super into like movies and books and just like the weird shit too. I'm still to this day, like I'll watch foreign films and read manga and fucking all that shit that people are like, why do you indulge in all this weird shit?
Right.
Because it's art. Like it's interesting. It's different cultures that exposes me to new worlds that I otherwise wouldn't have that exposure. And it's opened my mind to humanity, I feel like,
Oh, that's a good way to say that.
Yeah.
That was nice.
That's how I feel about it. I'm gonna just stop there.
Why? I wanted to hear more.
Oh, I gotta stop while I'm ahead. That was great. That was a great finisher.
That was awesome the way you put that. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you hit the nail on the head.
You definitely gotta go out there and see more of the world. I feel that way talking with my sisters sometimes. Like they're so like ingrained in this small town. Like the older of the two is starting to get it a little bit more now that she's getting out a bit more. But it's just like you can tell with the youngest who's pretty much grown up. Hey.
Good evening, everyone. Greetings. Oh, Brazil in the house.
Oh, what's up, man?
What's going on, Brazil? Glad to find YouTube channels talking about important things. Wow, look, see Chase, you big time, man.
Buddy, thanks for viewing over
yeah,
here.
Appreciate it.
Can you guys send me a pair of autographed underwear?
Us? Yeah, we can.
Porn.
I got you.
Okay, I appreciate it. I'm gonna sell that on eBay.
But yeah, I don't know. I do think I was exposed to new things, and people definitely need that because my youngest sister definitely is the one who's grown up the most in a small town and not had much outside exposure, and I think that affects her view of the world greatly. And I always think it's crazy even when people close themselves off like from their entertainment. It's just like, oh, I don't watch stuff with subtitles. I don't, animations for kids, like shit like that. Oh, video games are for, kids, like just shit like that, and closing themselves off to all these different stories, all of these different mediums of art and stuff where they could just be exposing themselves to new ideas and stuff. It's just important.
To me, it's always even more than that. The world does feel very small when you stay where you're at. And when you're just there all the time, even if you're traveling an hour, 2 hours to the next big city over to a big city and seeing this or that, it still feels very small, even though you're like, it is big. And like, I've got to go around to 29 different countries around the world and stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When I was in the Navy.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So in doing that, though, you start meeting people that you never would see ever a day in your life from all these different. You realize everybody's just doing the same things. We're all just trying to get the same things, be happy, live, eat, have fun, make memories while we're here and all this stuff. And it's crazy because it's like, if it was something that everybody had to do or needed to do, I feel like you would really, it would change a lot of worldviews, man. I feel like it would make people live different because it's not like, when you grow up, you're like United States and, of course over here they teach, oh, we're the best in the entire nation. Look at us and this and that. And it's like, some of these people were probably happier than half the people I see walking down the streets here. And they're living completely different. But like, being able to see and talk to them and find out, they ain't doing nothing different than the rest of us. We're all just going to our jobs, working, loving where we're at, enjoying our cultures where it's at.
I agree.
To answer this, yes, the main point of today's talk is the relation between religion and mental health.
Yes.
That is awesome, man. You got fans in Brazil. Can we come stay at your house in Brazil? He's got a comment back.
Speaking of seeing the world. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even that, like, you get to see, like, I've always, when it came to religion and stuff, like, to me, it was always, you know, why can't everybody be right? You know, because everybody's like, no, this is the right one, this is the right one, that's the right one. They're wrong. They've got the kind of idea, but you know, it's like, well, if I can't even explain the universe to me. I couldn't explain how the universe got created, you know. But what I can explain is like it is bigger than anybody can fathom. My brain cannot. Like, I can think that I know how big this is just because we've seen pictures. You can watch YouTube videos going from Earth all the way out to the edge of the solar system and stuff. But you just really can't fathom that size. That's like, why can't all this stuff exist within this universe that our energies, when we pass away, go to? But if I believe nothing happens, you can look up, you can Google pictures right now of a black void within space that they found. No stars are at, it's just black there. They don't know what's there. Nothing as far as they know. So if you believed with all of the energy in your being while you're here, well, when I die, nothing's going to happen. It's just going to be black. Nothing's going to happen anymore.
Yeah.
What's to say that your energy isn't transferred right there the second you die?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Experience, it's all the next step up. Sure. You know what I mean? That was a lot of talk with like DMT, like when I was watching shit a lot on DMT and stuff, because people were talking about that, like going to like a Catholic heaven, going to the rebirth canal and all this stuff. And it was like, that's what started making me start thinking like, well, what if everybody was right? What if every religion was just the universe fucking creating itself in a physical form, showing people, well, you could live like this if you want, like, you know?
Well, I mean, my thing is, over the past few years of learning more about different religions and stuff, is that at the base of a lot of them, the spiritual base of a lot of them, that's where the similarities lie, is in that spiritual base. But then it's the man-made religion stuff that starts branching off and creating all this new shit, you know. But it's like there's those basic principles of the universe that lie at the base of so many of these things, you know. And so when I started to notice that, that's when I started thinking kind of the same way, just, you know, just the energy in the world. And yeah, I don't know, man. It's very restrictive culture. It can be a very toxic culture.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because you're right. You know, all these religions, they have a base, and it's funny because.
Well, I think something all three of us have said, that like when you meet somebody who is very like into their religion and very like deeply religious, they will not accept that they're wrong. We're willing to accept that we might not be right. We're willing to accept that it's like, yeah, I could be wrong. You know, it's like, sure, like I'm just spitballing here. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, but that's a sign of intellect. And then what is that? That I was trying to think of that phrase. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. When you think about judgment and stuff like that, and everybody who we're talking about is judging people, is abuse. That's, you know, the mental abuse. That's abuse. However you want to slice it, abusing other people, and not generally speaking, but rationally speaking, affecting the rest of their life, the way they interact with other people, the way they believe in in the universe, believe other people, the way they trust others, respect others, and so on and so forth. And it can be very detrimental. But what happened to God is love, and that's it. Can't God be? We all say God. If I say God, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, if you know me, you know I'm not religious, but I'm talking about the universe. I'm talking about the source, whatever you want to call it, the origin. But why can't that just be it? But they don't practice any of that. They just want you to listen to what they say, or else it's a problem. But everybody who is deeply religious goes against those tenets. And it isn't just about love. It's about being right. But we learn in relationship counseling that you're supposed to, it's you two against the problem, not you two against each other arguing the problem. And we realize that we don't know how to communicate. So if on a larger scale, we don't know how to communicate, we don't know how to talk to each other, we don't know how to have constructive conversations, intellectual conversations. Hey, babe, can you get my charger? My computer. Can you get my charger for the computer real quick? I'm sorry, I can't get up. See, now I'm in trouble. But
what did I tell you at the beginning?
She told me to get my charger.
Tell the whole world.
See, you hear? This is what I got to deal with. Then what is the larger issue and how is it affecting everybody? And we're talking about it, but nobody else is talking about all these things.
So that's a good segue here. We got a couple questions here.
Oh shit! Okay.
Gabriel said, "There's millions of people who should sit and have a talk like this." My question for you is, why do you think that doesn't happen more often?
Shep.
Oh.
I think a lot of people are scared.
I was going to say fear.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to deal with fear and challenging what you believe. Just like you were saying earlier when you were talking about growing up with the Jehovah's and how like somebody that had done that for 50 years, you know, and if aliens did come and you know, finding out maybe they were bamboozled or something like that. I feel like a lot of that, it's like when you establish that faith within yourself, you just hold on to that because you've got it. And if you question it and you start poking around, that might you might find out at the end of the day like you were wrong. And just like that, like, you know, like, and my mom, just like Chase said, like when this, my mom's always gave me the flip side of that. She said, I'd rather die and be wrong and it be nothing than die and it be right and I have to go to hell. And it's like, okay, like I can vibe with that on yours. Like, she's Catholic, she does the Catholic stuff, but like, you know, to me, I think that's what I think people are afraid. You know, I think that goes on both sides. I think people are afraid to come out and be like, I don't really vibe with religion. And I think people are kind of afraid to go out and say, I vibe hard with religion, when it's a group of people that don't, because they think they're going to be berated. But
and I think
that's a good point.
Easier for a group of us, you know, individuals here to talk about something like this, because I feel like none of us are that deeply rooted into a religion that we have that fear doesn't linger over us to have these discussions.
True.
Question things. We, you know, had it been you at 7 years old, you know, you may not have wanted to have this conversation.
Oh man, I'd be talking about Jehovah this and Jesus that. But you know, the thing too is comfort. Think about an abusive relationship. You know you're not supposed to be there. You know this is bad, and even if you don't know exactly what you should do, you know innately that things should change. But yet, sometimes it's just easier not to stir the pot. And I think for some people, they have a routine, they have a sense of belonging, they have just all the things that you need on a basic human level. And I think at some point, some people are not concerned with whether it's right or wrong. They're just concerned with the way their life is going. And I think we're creatures of habit. And I think that's a large piece that we often, because of course it's fear, of course. But I think it's comfort sometimes.
Well, that, and I think a lot's what's passed down. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody in my mother's perspective, being a Catholic, raised on that. Her mom, her dad were Catholics. You know, to challenge that belief is challenging your entire lineage. You know what I'm saying? It's you know, it's going against all. You know, your whole family has believed in this till they've passed away, and now you're challenging that. You're the first one that's come and said, I don't think that's right. And you might find, you know, and I think those are hard conversations. It's a lot about the mental health. I think there's just a lot of hard conversations that people are uncomfortable to have.
Something I would love to do.
That's a good point.
I've been thinking about recently. Something we have not done on Mental Health Monday is have like a panel of people, have like a full panel of guests instead of just the one guest. And this topic in particular, I mean, I have a lot of people that come from different backgrounds on this. You know, Priyanka from the Hindu religion. I've got a friend who's grown up in the Mormon religion. You know, and just a lot of people from different views, different backgrounds, how the different religions have affected them. So I think a little part 2 on this with a panel of people could make for a really great episode. Panel people.
We got some more questions?
Well, so we got Gabriel's comment here, and then we'll get Randy's question. Title of this video, Talk to Me, because being a loner / mentally derailed, I searched for a church to connect with people and talk about important things, so it had an impact on my mental health. Yeah, you know, even I, like with my seizures and stuff, I got to a point where I was like, I need to just find some sort of community to who's going to talk to me, who's going to help me through this, because I couldn't find anybody to relate to. Politics. It's hard to get a point across with 200 characters, but for me, the church helped me to connect to nice and sweet people, despite me having no religion or nothing. You know, and that's the flip side of it, because it's not all bad. No, it's not all bad.
Especially with churches.
Yeah, because sometimes those communities, those genuine communities of faith are there. But, you know, then you get in, there's 2 sides to it. You know, the toxic religion. Like I said earlier, I got friends who are religious that I have no problem with their religion. I have no problem with their viewpoint, because they're willing to accept my viewpoint. They're willing to accept their viewpoint. It's a discussion. It's a conversation we're allowed to be individuals. We're not like, no, this is what it is, and you can't act like this, and you can't be like this. But we believe in what we believe in, and we're still brothers. You know, it's
exactly. It's got to be love, man. Because I myself, I've been to some badass churches. I've been to some churches that were fun. I've been to some churches that were more community, and it was no judgment, and it was just people who there's gay people. There's a guy that's dressed up as a girl. It's a guy dressed up as a clown in the front pew. And like everybody, you just be who you are, but let's love Jesus together. And it's like, you know what? This is fun. And they're singing, and then it just feels good. And it's just like a social thing to let you know you're not alone. Those things are, I'll go.
Oh, yeah. So we'll jump back to Randy's question after Randy's comment. He said, unfortunately, being humans means needing approval. In my opinion, churches are echo chambers. You find the one you relate to most, and then you join in with the echo. So when it comes time to discuss things outside, you're only left with the points and views you've echoed amongst others for so very long. Yes, very true.
Randy coming with heat.
His questions. So why is consciousness not enough? Do we need purpose? Don't we already have the insane gift of controlling thought?
I think but that goes back to like the way we were brought up. So I was really insecure growing up. I had a lot of insecurities naturally. We all do. But I mean, there was a lot of stuff I struggled with because of what religion put on us. So just think about like the effect that it has on some degree in every religion on all of us. And then we go out in the world. And for me, when I left, that was Randy, that was hard. That was hard to think about. Maybe this is it. That's true. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is our one shot. That's true. But you know, the thing was when we made Beebs in the Trap and it's cold and I got off work, I was a bartender and I brought a big cup of tequila for us to drink so that we can warm up somehow. I remember shooting that and even though it was terribly produced, watching the fun that we had and teaching Alex how to rap, that gave me that feeling that I think that we're all, Shep, you being on stage at summer camp or being on stage and just getting the people cheering you on and just doing what you love, whatever that feeling is, I think that's what we are all trying to head towards. And sometimes some people think that they can find it with religion, but I think that it's what we're all actually searching for is, I don't know if Randy said it, but it's connection. That's what spirituality is. It's connection.
Yeah. The energy feels good. That's it. I felt embraced, even though I didn't know 1% of the word of God. The music atmosphere made me feel way better. Don't ask me what a song is, though.
Well, like I said, man, and I've been around the world, a lot of places, and those were a lot of people that would no, you weren't from there. They would reach out to you. They were very friendly. You know, they didn't want to see you, get bamboozled in their country or anything like that because they knew you weren't from, And there is a lot of that. I think what you said is the truth, man. I think it's a lot about connection, and that's what a lot of that is. There was, even my stepdad that he made us go to church. Church was a social thing for him more so than it was going. We got to go and preach this word.
Yeah,
it was, his had
communal.
Darker seeds in the back half of it, like he had to put on a show for people and stuff like that, but that's his own demons that he's fighting. But like that was what it was more so for him. And I had something to say about, I forget the questions go around consciousness not enough, do we need purpose? And for that, like, do people need purpose? I've always thought that if like when people go out and they try to search for their purpose in the world, they're, even if I went out tomorrow and I just started searching and I was like, I just feel like I don't have a purpose. I need to find it. I'm going out and I'm doing this. I'm creating. I'm getting those new connections with people like we're talking about. I'm doing something. Maybe what I go search for my purpose, and that's helping homeless people or rebuilding stuff at schools or something like that. Therefore, I'm creating love within the world. I'm doing this thing, and then you'll eventually realize like, oh shit, I've had my purpose this whole time, and it's been, a helper and doing all this stuff and whatnot. And I think that when people go out on that search for purpose, a lot of good comes from that. So I think questioning what my purpose is in life is healthy as fuck.
Well, we keep talking about, religion as like a comfort zone for some people, and even people who aren't religious that like might go through something that brings them to religion because they are expecting to find that solace there. And in some ways, some people will find that. But I think that's just like the immediate that people think of because that's kind of how it's depicted. But him talking about the energy that feels so good in that environment. Like I've been there during church. Like I'm not a religious person, but I've been to church services that I'm like, damn, this environment is uplifting. It really does leave you with that feeling. But I've also been to concerts, like in a movie that's just blown me away. Like these moments of just like being in a place with a bunch of people experiencing the same thing. I was in a play when I was younger where they had a line in it talking about regarding the Bible. They were like, "It's a good book, but it's not the only book." And when I was younger, and somebody pointed out the comparison between the story of Superman and the story of Jesus. You're getting the same stories, just cut in different ways. So it's like you can find those same things that you find in religion in storytelling and just social situations and in every moment of life, really. You can find that shit wherever you want, but religion's just the like streamlined what's kind of the easiest accessible thing.
I just always felt like that was the vibrational frequency. Like that is our brains. Like when you're engulfed in that and you're like, it's just, I feel happy. I feel the energy of the room. It's that like, our brains are receivers. Our consciousness are receivers. And it's like the whole world vibrates in certain patterns and stuff. And I do feel like that. That's just all of our minds and our everything's connecting to this same vibrational pattern that's going over all of us, and we're all in them, and that's why you feel that at concerts, you feel that at churches, you feel that motivational speeches, or at the end of a fucking series, and NBA and your team won and stuff like that, and you're in there. And like me, like when I always said, like I was back when CM Punk came back, and it's like, man, the energy in there, and it's like because like everybody is there, we're there for the same thing. It goes a lot deeper than we've even touched on. I feel like today.
No, I agree.
We are coming to the end, so we'll have to start wrapping up here. So let's hit it with the closing thoughts.
I thought Chase missed me, and now he's trying to close the show, so I'm offended.
Hey, yeah, I just said I'd have you back.
Oh, okay.
I think I'll go ahead and start with the closing thoughts. I mean, I think. There's definitely two sides to it. We definitely focus more on the toxic side of religion and negative effects that can have on your mental health. But there's some positives there as well, depending on the community. You just have to be mindful of the community. I said last week on the show that even when I got into Buddhism and stuff, like I had to write myself a note that said, beware of Buddhism, because I started holding myself to these man-made parts of Buddhism. And I'm like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm like, now I'm starting to work against this whole idea of living a free life and everything, because now I'm condemning myself on shit that doesn't matter. I miss the whole point of the spirituality and getting stuck on the religion. So you definitely got to be careful with that.
I think you should lead with love in life, no matter what you do, and that entails with the religion and stuff too. I think go with your heart. Don't be Joel Osteen religious. Don't have the flood come and keep your gates closed. Like, we need to spread more love and kindness. And me, like I said, I've never, we're on the same vibes here. I've never been a very religious person, but if I'm, doing my job or something, and somebody tells me, hey, I hope you have a blessed day or something, I hope you have a blessed day too. Shit, like hell yeah, because it's all about creating love.
It's all about love.
Yeah, and positivity. Like I said, tap into that high vibrational pattern. Get that chakra up.
Go ahead, man. I definitely agree with that. I guess my closing thought would be fuck the Jehovah's Witnesses first off, and I agree. Go to what feels good. I unfortunately I don't think that there's anything good about the Witnesses. But as far as religion, there's definitely some positives. There's definitely some things that I've taken from and still say and use in my life. You know what I mean? But I do think that we should continue to be curious. Of course, like Shep said, we should try to vibrate higher. I think we should go to what feels good and makes us feel stress-free and more in tune with who we are and go in line with what we want. And I think that we should lead with our hearts. And I think that we should continue to feel more and try to really put ourselves first and not allow ourselves to be shamed, because that will dictate our character, dictate how we act. And if we have control over ourselves, and if we go out and do what we want to do and become who we want to be, then I think that we'll reach our highest destiny that way.
Yeah, and I think a thought I had while you were talking on religion, I think if it embraces the community, it's probably going to be a good one. If it's trying to close off you off from a community, I would definitely proceed with caution.
It's like the Jehovah's Witnesses, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. They definitely are. Whereas the other churches aren't. I could walk into a Methodist church right now and I feel like they would let me in the door. You know what I'm saying? Jehovah's Witness, not so much.
Yeah.
Mom, sorry, Catholics, probably not so much.
0 out of 10 for the Jehovah's Witness. Can we end with Jeff?
And one more from Gabriel. If it's 9:07 there, I think 8 o'clock your time.
Yeah,
every Monday at 8 o'clock we do Mental Health Monday. If you subscribe to the channel, we got a whole lot of other stuff. We do Mental Health Monday. We've got scripted shows. We got quite a back catalog at this point.
Yeah, we do. And you can hit a playlist of Mental Health Mondays and go through a lot. We've definitely grown over a year doing this, and it's great. And I believe next week we should have, I'm going to hit him up and remind him, my homie MC Rhoda, he just had an album come out about a hip-hop album about depression. He does a lot of good poetry and whatnot, so I thought he'd be a good one to come on here and talk depression with us.
Oh yeah! And for those who don't know Rhoda, he's pretty much a genius who's a lawyer and still has time to make an album.
Yeah,
just be incredible. So he's definitely one of the Shep and all his friends are definitely like people that are not your average everyday people. So if they're doing anything, tune in and you will be surprised.
Yeah, and he's got some good shit. Yeah, I've always ever since I met him looked up to the guy because just like he said, yeah, he'd show up in the biggest dad gear for a hip hop concert. Go kill it, and everybody, okay. Very interested. Thank you guys for all the questions tonight too. Though I feel like the discussion here at the end has really gotten really good with answering questions we've been wanting.
We've had a great month with Mental Health Awareness Month. Some great guests, some fantastic conversations from each and every single one of you.
Exactly. Yes.
John, so happy to have you back for the fourth time.
Love you guys, man. I miss you all. I'll see you soon.